Vsauce. I'm Jake, and thank you for visiting because I have been stuck in this chair for weeks. Why, you ask? Let me...
No, I don't ask for why. Instead, why don't you ask me why I came? Well, YouTube police, you're under arrest for making a misleading video. Logical paradoxes. Paradoxes cannot be logical. By definition, paradox is a contradiction, and it's actually very easy to phrase it as a problem. So, they're basically all one and the same. You can take any single problem, ask a question, then it becomes a problem, but you can also put it as paradox when you just put contradictions in just order together. So, let's take an example. And I'll take an example from here. CGP Grey talks about how he released a video asking for advice because he didn't know what to do after CGP Grey released a video talking about exactly the same paradoxes, the two paradoxes, mainly transporter paradox. And the problem wasn't solved there, it was just discussed. It's kind of like watch the first Matrix and not watch the second one or the third one. What is the pill for? You know, it took the fucking pill, dude. Everyone take the pills. Anyway, so the problem he was asking for advice for, which again is a paradox, you have his video that he was making, and there was a video that was describing something a lot better. Basically a paradox where you have a better thing, so why would you release that is something is worse? A paradox and a problem. I cannot really phrase it as a just paradox. What I can't phrase it, we can take a second paradox that he talked about is a heap of sand and slowly turn it into grains of sand. And the question is, the problem is, when does it become a grain of sand? How many grains of sand do we take so the heap becomes grains of sand, not just a heap anymore? So we have a problem of X becoming something like Y, one definition becoming another definition. And I would suggest, because every single problem is talking about definitions or identity, third and fourth paradoxes talk about the identity, I would suggest that logical would be thrown out of the title and changed by definitions. That's basically the main crime that I'm here for. Or definition paradoxes. Alright, so paradoxes can be logical, but they are no longer paradoxes. That's also a paradox. I mean, you can always put problem together and see like it's a paradox, but usually when paradoxes stay and being told over and over again, like usually they're kind of useless to solve because they were unsolved and people like still kind of confused. But yeah, when you put it in the form of paradox, you don't ask questions or anything. You do want to ask questions, but yeah, it's more of a like entertainment value rather than just asking a question and actually solving a problem. And when you do solve a paradox or a problem, because they're pretty much one of the same, you get a solution. And they can be logical. What is logical? Well, I'll give you a definition for that. So you take part of the word logical, you pick log. We know that log is kind of like this collection of information, of observable data. or observed data. And when we pick one part of data and match with another part of data, we kind of like expect logical thing to happen, that they will, not cancel each other out. Say that this cannot happen or this cannot happen at the same time, right? There can be no contradictions because log has to be 100% logical without any contradictions. So that's what it means. Logical means that they're logical by definition has one rule that defines it. And now I'm going to talk about rules that define things, because everything is defined by rules. Meaning that this problem can also be solved by simple rules, which means that x turn into y at a certain point, and that point can be measured by a certain rule, where we cannot actually measure grains of sand easily, and that's like the paradox. That's the actual problem of the paradox. There is you can turn paradox into problem, but there is an actual like problem that leads to a solution, and that's kind of like also a problem in itself. Oh god. oh god. Yeah, the problem is actually that you can't easily measure the grains of sand, but that's like closer to the solution, and you get to the solution closer and closer as you like unravel the problem or the paradox. So you can define it by simple rule. You just say 3 grams. It's gonna be not a heap of sand. If it's less, if it's more, it's a heap of sand. It's good enough, because usually grains of sand just are not more than 3 grams, or a certain amount of grains of sand to look like a heap, not just grains of sand, when they're at 3 gram weight. So that's much better. We solved the second problem. Now we're going to solve the rest, because, well, I want to make it logical. I want to get solutions. So again, logical can be defined by a simple rule that there has to be no contradictions in the world. There cannot be contradictions. It's either an original thing, or it's either a recurring thing and something is wrong. Original thing just stands by its own. It doesn't even have anything to compare to. But usually we do have things to compare to. But let's say we see a new thing, a completely new thing, and we just have nothing to compare it to. We have no rules, no basis for how we can define it and say that it cannot happen. Well, we don't know, because we cannot really actually define it by what rules make it happen, and if they recur, we cannot test it, or we haven't not tested it. But at some point we're gonna find these connections and see if they contradict or not, and that's what actually we have to do constantly if you want to become smarter. You have to stop watching these fucking videos that Vsauce is putting out until he actually either, I'm glad he released the video, because I can do it. I can solve the problems. But until he just kind of presents the red pill type of stuff, that, oh, look at this, red pill or the blue pill? Yeah, it just looks like a sign of a police car, right? The siren. It's not 2 pills, You have to choose the red one. Just fight or flight, baby. Anyways, so we're gonna solve the first problem, which is called the hypothesis. I don't care. It doesn't matter what the problem is called. It's just gonna be solved. So we have a ship we deconstruct it part by part, or by replacing parts we get extra parts, and we create another ship out of this. And like, oh my god, it's so confusing, because if we define this as X, do we still define this as X? Well, now we know that every single definition is defined by rules. So how do we solve this? Well, I give you another thing or a problem to solve. Well, we have Minecraft, right? How do we define Minecraft? We have cubes, okay, we have certain items, or the way infinite generation of cubes. Alright, so we pick another game, we compare it. Do we still define Terraria as a Minecraft clone? Maybe, there's this debate going on. Every single time another clone-ish game comes out, but usually most of the games are remixes. It just cannot be the other way around, because, well, you are inspired by other games, obviously. You learn from them, and it's kind of inevitable to have certain parts to happen in another game as well. Just like you cannot really assemble a chair which is different from the previous chair, assembled not by atoms. Like one chair is made by atoms, and then it's completely original. It's not made by atoms, it's made by photons or something like that. And I believe photons is just electrons. It's not full atoms, but man, I would be surprised if that would be a suitable chair. Anyways, it's just there's no reason for things, or like Minecraft is created by code, and suddenly another game is completely created by other kinds of means. It doesn't make sense that something has worked before and you still use different tools to make it again, but that's not the problem that I want to deal with. The problem is, do we still define it as X once we reconstruct it? And of course we do. If that's exactly the same thing, if we define things by rules, that means that the idea is defined X, and everything that applies to that idea, an idea simply is a subset of rules, right? Minecraft is an idea. You cannot get to the original version of Minecraft because it might not actually be Minecraft at that point. You don't even know when the original actually appeared, because you don't know what the idea even is. The ideas really are not defined. When you have copyrighted content, you don't even know what the ideas are. Holy crap, that's gonna make the whole fucking YouTube just destroyed, which it is right now. And also, the copyright thing is just gonna be a whole nother topic for me to digest and just give it to you, right? That's what I'm doing, just digesting some shit. Not shit, food. You won't get shit, but maybe you will. Maybe you will. Alright, so we have the idea, which is defined by rules, and this is what defines the ship. Even if you deconstruct it or whatever happens, if it meets the criteria, it is the same ship. It can be defined by the same name. When we get to definitions of names, kind of get into problems with people and consciousness. Consciousness, yes. So we can replace a human body into another human body, and when do we lose something? No. Do we lose our identity? That's the question. Is it still X if we replace every single atom in the body? Well, that's not how you ask the question. We have to go forward and say, well, how do we define this? How do we define if? We replace it in what do we test to find in another body that we can still, figure it out, if we can still define it as X. Now, names are a little bit more complicated. Most of the times, it's like really difficult paradox when you think about it. Like, how do you even test the thing, because it might lie to you and say that, well, I'm a different person now, or not different person. You just cannot know by observing another person. The only thing you can know is what this person is controlled by, and the consistency that a person cannot be possessed most of the times by a demon, or cannot be teleported and lose consciousness and someone else would take the consciousness, because, well, consciousness seems to be a real thing that just is. We might not be able to measure it, but it just kind of is, like this amygdala point of the brain or something like that, or is connected to that point. It's connected to the brain as well through that point. I don't know, that's my idea, but it has to be existent, right? There has to be consciousness. Some people call it soul, and I definitely believe that that's what it is, and that's what it has to be. Because, well, someone is controlling the body, and otherwise we have the problem, and the only way we can solve it is by saying there is a soul. So yeah, I didn't thought I was gonna make to this conclusion, but yeah, that's a good conclusion. We have to just define another rule, because we cannot say we can't say this, we cannot say that. All rules apply, but we still kind of have this problem where we don't know. So if we don't know, we just create another rule and say, well, there has to be a soul, and the soul has to be different. Again, if there is no way to tell, you kind of either fish for information, or, we give up because we will never know. Especially if the problem is not real. Because we kind of fish for information, but usually, we'll be able to maybe detect if that's the same consciousness. Somehow. We don't even know how can we measure it, so I cannot tell you for sure, but I'm pretty sure that memories are also linked, or should be linked, to the consciousness as well, because memories are also not stored in the brain, weirdly enough, so it's probably possessed by the soul, which means problem solved. It's just looking at the memories most of the time, or that's the theory. If they can theorize about teleportation, why not solve the problem with the soul? Anyways, an easier problem is the third one. I was mainly talking about the fourth one, and basically solve the fourth paradox. The third paradox is just replacing body parts or something like that. Which parts do you define as yours and stuff like that? But, whichever parts you control is you, right? You can't replace your arm, your leg. It's still you. It's all about what you are able to control. Just like you have a robot, you can build it of different parts. You can build a wing. It still would be defined as this part of the robot. But if you give it a sword, a tool, well, it's not a part of the robot. It is not defined by the sword, or the sword is just damn it. It's always difficult. But yeah, it's just the sword is just a tool. It's not a part of a robot. It's not something he can directly control. And the definition, well, here's the definition. We take an arm. How do you define this as a part of identity? Well, yeah, it's a part of you. If you are actually able to control another human being by distance, you are actually defined by that human being. Even if you control like your own body, another body, and many, many more. Maybe in some weird way we are connected. If we actually are able to do that, we would actually be able to identify ourselves as another human being. Simply because identity is defined by what the consciousness is able to control. Yeah, that's pretty badass. And that's kind of like the end of the video. But now, I give you a problem, which I'm not gonna solve, but I'm gonna encourage you to solve it, not just say, "Oh, look at this! It's a paradox." It's not. I mean, at least call it a problem. Then you know it's like solvable. Or when you ask for advice, you're actually asking to solve the problem, to help solve a problem. But when you make a paradox video, it's just kind of like entertainment value, just horrible. Now here's entertainment for you. It's easier when it's harder, or when it's hard. That's something for you to think about, because I think this statement is true. It looks contradictory, you know, how easier is hard, what? But it seems contradictory, but you can probably find a solution, and I'll see you guys next time. But yeah, it's kind of like a new thing. I'm not sure what the next video is going to be, who's the next going to be arrested, so stay tuned.